Chapter 10, Decision Making by Individuals and Groups. When we think about decisions, they fall into two categories. Programmed, which tend to be simple, like what am I going to eat for breakfast? Non-programmed, where they're complex and that require a lot more thought process. So the decision-making process consists of 8 steps, where you walk through the different 8 steps to end up with a decision, which also includes a step for follow-up as to whether it was the right decision or not. Models for decision-making: rational, bounded rationality, and garbage can. Effective decisions should be timely, accepted by those affected. It's not unusual to have a decision made and those affected are really not comfortable, and meets the goal. So rational, just by definition, it's step by step. Bounded rationality is basically realizing that in some cases we just don't have all the information, so we're not completely step-by-step rational. We will use different techniques with bounded rationality. Two important points with bounded rationality: satisfice, figuring it's good enough, and the first alternative, my understanding may not always be the first alternative, but our text says that, but it means you're basically realizing time-wise this is a good decision. Heuristic, which means trial and error, rule of thumb, you have some chance to play with the decision. The garbage can model is kind of as it's described. You dump everything in, and hopefully if things align, you will have good decisions. Sometimes this is a method that ends up being used just because of the complexity and time. Okay, when you think about risk, successful managers take more risks. I think that's a fine line, and it'll depend on the situation, but as we all know, if we put our money into a bank account at 0.01%, we're not probably going to be successful as if we take some risk with stocks. Escalation of commitment. You can tell that it's not the right decision or the direction, but we just keep going. And there's numerous examples of this, some excellent ones in your text. Jung was a psychiatrist, and he talked about cognitive styles. How we look at things, how we perceive, how we judge, creates our cognitive style. When you think back to Jung and the connection to Myers-Briggs, the terms SFTN are part of the Myers-Briggs analysis, and these are styles. The Z problem solving is the form of a Z. You start with sensing, then you intuitively look at possibilities, think about them, get a feel for what's the best. Very good pictorial of your Z problem solving model. Many of us think of ourselves as either right brain or left brain. When we look at our cognitive styles, those that have the left brain indicate more of that Western logical, right side, more Eastern intuitive. Intuition. Some use it better than others. It's usually associated to a quick response, usually below your conscious. There are learned patterns, in other words, past experiences, and usually has a positive impact on your decision. Creativity, that process that helps you produce novel and useful ideas. The process, prepare, incubate, think about it, kind of put some insight, light, illumination, and verify. Our individual influences, cognitive process, and personality factors. With organizations, some are better at creating and influence creativity than others. Some killers, political problems, being closely monitored. Boosters, flexible structures, diverse teams. Organizations can promote their creativity. Rewarding, providing training, new ideas, be allowed to fail. Different types of creativity. It's part of your job, you're responding to it. You're expected to look for problems to solve. You want to contribute, and you're very proactive. Participative is basically taking a supportive culture and team, and your decisions are made participatively. Okay, who needs to be on this? Who's a good candidate? You want to be involved. You can think on your own, because opinions and voices are important in that decision making. And you see the capacity of the relevance of participation for your sake. Why would we have some group decision making? Synergy. You're basically taking and compounding the availability of information. More knowledge. What's the advantage? Better understanding, more knowledge, better acceptance. Disadvantage, groupthink, group polarization, and it's longer. Groupthink. It's when the group acts as one person and will possibly not necessarily make the right and ethical type decisions. Best example of groupthink is when a group of people go to decide and steal something where every individual member of that group probably wouldn't do it individually. In your text, there's a chart that talks about symptoms with some great examples and information, and then talks about ways to prevent it. Group polarization. You could start out with an attitude, and that polarization of the group just kind of blows it up to extreme views. Group decision techniques, brainstorming, Delphi technique. You tend to use experts. My understanding is this is also a great forecasting method for new and different products that have no history. Usually it's anonymous. Nominal group. Basically you are more silenced and doing it more all without a lot of conversation. I have not seen this demonstrated, but I think it'd be very interesting. Devil's advocate. I'm a great devil's advocate. So you have some critique while you're going through it. And dialectical inquiry, a debate. I think about presidential debates. It allows for things to come out for better understanding of the directions and decisions. There are other types of group decision making, quality circles. They are usually voluntary. My exposure has been great to them and they're very successful. Quality teams, continually focusing on information for the organization. Self-managed teams, a team making their own decisions that normally would have been directed to them. Again, when we think of some of decision techniques we talk about, they tend to, again, be US based. And if we think about what we've learned in past chapters about how different cultures look at their cultural dimensional factors, their decision making can have adjustments. Think about the virtual workplace, video conferencing, group decision support systems, which are described in your text as a way to almost play games anonymously with decisions. Intranet. Most companies will have an intranet where you can have databases and all sorts of things that allow for communication and decision making. Expert systems are kind of using that GDSS and the intranet. And agent-based modeling is described also in your textbooks as a tool where you are running a bunch of different scenarios. The last thing with decision making, which is very important, is ethical. Is it legal? Is it balanced? How does it make me feel?